Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Premiership Quarter. Today, I'm going to be doing a different style of video that I've done recently, where it's going to be a reaction video to the Adelaide Crows' poor start to 2024. This is recorded on the Friday morning, so the night after they've just lost to Melbourne in the first game of Gather Round, and I'm just sort of be going through what my thoughts are on Adelaide, why I think they're underperforming. Is it necessarily an underperformance, or have they just been overhyped during the off-season? So to start with, their game last night, they weren't too bad. I thought they were a bit more dangerous. Taylor Walker had a better game. Darcy Fogarty was a bit more aggressive, but he just wasn't in the game consistently. He would bob up for a mark here or there, but I never found him to be a consistent threat for Melbourne to cover. Chris Burgess couldn't impact the game, which is why he got subbed out early third quarter. And Tom Berry came on, and I thought he was pretty good. He provided some aggression, and maybe that's a new role for him as maybe a substitute where he can be a very physical player coming off as the sub. I thought their smalls in Rankin, Rochelle, and Murphy weren't terrific. Rankin kicked 1 goal 3, I believe. He was okay through the first 3 quarters. He sort of touched the ball a bit more in the last early on, but he didn't have that finishing product. I thought Rochelle struggled a fair bit against a solid Melbourne defensive unit. I thought their midfield, again, same problems as it's been all year. Laird had 70% game time. Matt Crouch had 67% game time, yet they got a fair bit of the ball. Laird had 24 touches and Crouch had 30. Crouch has been exceptional this year, and someone like Saligo bobbed up to get 27 touches, that they're just not damaging. They're not getting forward, they're not kicking goals, and they're not impacting the game to the point where like Melbourne midfields are, which I know it's comparing to arguably the best in the league, but they were predicted to be in the top 8 at bare minimum this year. They've played some really good teams. Yes, they played Fremantle, who are looking really good. They've played Geelong, who are also looking great, and they've just played Melbourne. But the predictions at the start of the year had some people even thinking top 4 potentially for Adelaide. So what's gone wrong? They, like I said, their midfield have stalled. I thought Riley O'Brien was excellent though tonight in the ruck against Max Gawn. And they also, off of halfback, have lost Wayne Miller last week, and Brodie Smith hasn't kept the same quality in his form as he did last year. So they're not getting the speed off of halfback, and I think their key backs went all right this week against Ben Brown and Van Ryan. But Frisch was good, Pickett was exciting. He was in and out of the game like a lot of small forwards do, but when he was there, he was exciting. I think he kicked 2 goals for the night, maybe 3. He kicked 2. Van Rooyen did kick 2 as well, but one of them was a result of a 50-metre. I thought Mark Keane stood up quite well. I thought it was quite good, especially early on. He got a fair bit of the ball and was quite damaging with his kick. Jordan Butts wasn't superb by any means, but he played his role relatively well. But I think they need a bit more youth in their team. They're relying on a fair bit of older players, Laird, Crouch, as I said, Brodie Smith. They're not necessarily very young. They've also got Taylor Walker, and I think a lot of their reliance on them has sort of forced them to be a bit slower because there is an extra bit of age that they've had, and so potentially playing with someone like Daniel Curtin could provide a bit more boost to their back half, and so that could be quite important. But to look at who else they could really go for, I don't think there's too much. They made a few changes. They added Nankervis, they added Parnell. There's not really much else they could do in terms of changing the team. I think they just need to do a couple of positional changes. So whether that's moving Rory Laird back to half-back where he was at his best in 2017, 2018, where I think he made an All-Australian team a couple of times. Potentially moving Jordan Dawson back there because he hasn't had that same impact in the midfield this year as he did at the back end of last year, or even moving him to the half-forward line so he can be a bit more of a ball winner there and they can have a better connection. Moving someone like Saligo permanently into the midfield, or Josh Rochelle to get back into form. They've just really struggled this year in being impactful when they've had the ball and being dangerous and threatening with the ball in hand. And I think that's where they need to improve. Matty Nix hasn't done a great job this year. I thought, especially last week against Geelong, he could have made a couple changes. He didn't do any this week that I could really notice, and so there's certainly room for improvement. Looking ahead for who they play in the next couple of weeks, I'll just get that up now. But I don't know if it's looking too good. Adelaide, they've got Carlton next week, and that's at Marvel Stadium, so not an easy game by any means. Then they've got Essendon on Friday. Is it the Friday night? Yep, Friday night in Adelaide. So that, I think, could be a win. It's probably a 50-50, depending on how Essendon go in the next couple of weeks. Then they've got North, which should be a win. But then they've got 3 really, really tough games. They've got Port, Brisbane, and Collingwood. And so if you say they win against Essendon and North Melbourne, they're 2 and potentially 8 by round 10. That's really, really not good. While Brisbane and Port Adelaide are in Adelaide, it's going to be the showdown for round 8, and then arguably a team who need to bounce back by round 9. And they don't travel the best, Brisbane, but against Adelaide, who aren't in form, they could very well be in the bottom 4. And I don't see them making a GWS or a Carlton type leap. So it could very well be a wasted year by the end, because there was a lot of pressure and a lot of it wasn't warranted. If you watched my predictions, I had them finishing just outside the 8, about 10 or 11, and even that's looking a bit too much at this time of the year. And so I think there's going to be a lot more that needs to change. Matty Nix might need to look a bit more at what he can do to improve this team, and I think there's going to be a lot more that they need to change with in terms of adding pace to their list, and their list does need to get better. And it's unfortunate they didn't get Harry Petty, but I don't think he would have changed too much this time. They need to add more speed. They need to do a bit of what St Kilda did, where they add some outside run and potentially look at someone like, I think, Lockie Scholl into this team, because I think he does provide a bit of that skill by foot, at least on paper, and he does provide a bit more speed. But that's my thoughts on Adelaide so far this year. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content. Hit the like button on this video. It really help push the video on the YouTube algorithm. And thanks for watching.